The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
I want to start off with a story which is really two stories in one. One of them I actually said it once before. There was somebody that was a boy in my class's parents about a year and a half ago. He told me the story. He said his wife was expecting a child, and in the middle of the pregnancy, they found out, Rahman al-Islam, the baby had a symptom called heliotaxy symptom. And what happened was, they asked their Rav, and the Rav told him, learn 2 laws of Lashon Hara. Learn 2 laws. And he said him and his wife started learning one of the English books on it. 3 months. And they came to Philadelphia Hospital. It was a place that probably the only hospital could handle such a situation. And he told me that they were around, there were mamish next, the doctors were around, and the baby was a baby boy. And right away the doctors took the child, tried to check for testing. And there's never been ever a baby born with this symptom without at least one or multiple surgeries. And many times the baby dies at childbirth. And after many hours, they came back and the doctor was shocked. The baby didn't need any operation. The heart was not a regular heart, was not a normal heart. And they started doing testing. There was a lady doctor, Dr. Vera, and she said later on, in the next few days, she said, I've never seen a baby born in 33 years without any problem. Even though the heart is not a regular heart, the whole heart doesn't work with regular. And still, Hashem made a miracle, and it's going on actually. The past year, they've been testing and checking the baby, and the doctor is amazed by such a birth. And what did they do? They started learning it 3 months. Now, I actually saw him. I'm a Rabbi, first grade for many years, and I'm teaching in few schools. And I saw him in orientation about 2 weeks ago. He told me that, again, they checked the baby, that the doctor said, you're a lucky man, he told him. And he told me he has a friend, him and his wife has friends. They didn't have children for 5 years. And he told them, why don't you learn the laws of Lashon Hara? And they were hesitant. Yeah, maybe now we don't know Segula. Do it. And then they pushed them to do it, and they started. On February 3rd, 2023, they started learning the laws of Chafetz Chaim. An English book. And he told me miraculously about 3 months later, she was expecting, and the due date of the child is February 3rd, 2024. Now, the first story I had mentioned once before, but it continues. When people start learning it, and people have asked me, and I'll say, no, I've said it in other recordings, which book to use a book called Daily Companion from the Art Scroll, a blue cover. It can be used by anybody. Anybody could read it. Takes 3 minutes a day. Or another book called Family Lesson a Day. There's other books that people use. But once you start, I've said many times, your life changes. You're more positive. Your life is a more happier life. Anybody, even people they're not involved in learning and not involved in Torah, they also get inspired because they feel a change. Hashem wants a person to become better characteristic traits, to feel better about himself, more positive. And this is a very big merit. About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, in my basement, when somebody was fixing my basement, my wife asked me to go give him a present. It was before Yom Kippur, right before Yom Kippur. And I went there on a Friday. I went there to give him a present. And I went there, and while I was there, the wife saw me, the husband's there, and they said that we have a story, amazing story. This is really amazing. They told me that actually the wife was telling me the story. She said they have friends. There was a brother and a sister, 2 people, 2 families of a brother and a sister. And actually he told me they don't have parents. He told me, and he said, and they were going through a lot of sorrow, a lot of pain. What happened? The brother there were 2 people, the brother one, his wife was expecting twins. And during that time, they found out that there's a sakana, one of the babies is too small. The doctor says, I don't think the baby's going to make it. And the other one had a problem with the leg, and there was a hereditary condition in the family of walking. And they said there's a possibility, chas v'shalom, maybe the baby is not going to be able to walk. And meanwhile, the sister that lives in Eretz Yisrael, she was expecting a child, but they found out very bad news, sad news. The mother has the machla. Sakana to the baby, sakana to the mother. It was a very bad situation. So she told me that she and her husband told them, why don't you learn the laws of Lashon Hara? Now they're from Eretz Yisrael, so learn the Hebrew one. They started learning the Hebrew one. This is an amazing story. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, they found out that they were checking the brother that had the twins, and the doctor said the baby's big enough, the sakana is off, and the other baby looks good. It was one side. And meanwhile, the lady on Eretz Yisrael, they were learning it for 2 weeks. And the sister in Eretz Yisrael, they found out there is the machla, but it's called local. And somebody explained to me, my wife actually explained it to me. She said, local, it's not sakana. You could treat it. And it went from both dangerous situations, and Hashem opened the gates. And they actually sent a picture of where they're up to in the Chafetz Chaim in the book. And what is it? It takes 4 months. I've said it in other recording. I will say it to inspire anybody. It takes 4 months to do it. 3 minutes a day. I've timed it with my watch. Your life will change. Anybody who's listening to the recording, if you're learning it, you understand what I'm saying. But if you're not learning it, your life will change tremendously. Very great. A little move, 3 minutes, you have a better life, a more positive life, a greater life. And this is all from 3 minutes. I want to share with you an amazing story I heard. The man told me that not to say where the city's from, but he told me that you could say where the baby was born. The baby was actually born in the hospital of Shaarei Tzedek before Tisha B'Av. Now we're holding by right after Simchas Torah, all the tragedies happening, and we're now going back 3 months ago. And this baby was born, big danger. When the baby was born, the doctors looked around. After the next day, the baby was born on a Shabbos. On Sunday, the doctors told the family, we have sad news, the baby is very critical. It doesn't look like the baby's going to make it. And even if miraculously the baby will make it, you'll have to be in the hospital many months, and who knows what's going to be afterward. And they didn't know what to do. This was on a Sunday. Monday, the parents decided to learn the laws of Lashon Hara, both of them. And I heard the story from the grandfather, the grandfather of the baby. He told me himself in about 15, 20-minute conversation. And he said on Monday they were accepted upon themselves to learn it. And meanwhile, they also went to a couple of Rabbanim. They told them they'll be okay. And on Thursday, the family in America, the grandmother and four aunts and four aunts, 2 sister-in-laws and 2 sisters of the father, started to learn a different book. It's called Purity of Speech, and about learning Lashon Hara. And they started. A week later, they start doing tests on the baby, and the baby's getting a little better. And little by little, miraculously, every day and every hour, the baby's getting better. 2 weeks later, the doctors meet with the family, the parents. And they said, you know what? We're going to let you take your baby home. What? Usually they never say it right before. Says, doctor, they asked the doctor, is this a miracle? And the doctor says, yes, it's a miracle. They took the baby home, in which they went out of sakana. And now, Baruch Hashem, he told me 3 months later, the baby is almost 100%. And he told me that I could say the story from the hospital with Shaarei Tzedek in Eretz Yisrael. And this is stories I'm getting, Baruch Hashem. I have hundreds and hundreds of stories. But the goal is the person changes and Hashem opens the gates. And now the situation in Eretz Yisrael, people are looking, what could we do? There's so many things, so much stars, we don't understand what to do. We don't have prophets that tell us what to do, but we do know certain things that can help alleviate the situation. And now I'm going to review a letter. I've said it all the way back, one of the first recordings, which I think is more important for this time. It was a letter. I have it right here. I could show it a little bit. It's excerpts from a letter from Rabbi Kanievsky. And I'm going to just read a few parts from it, which really, it's connected to the situation today. One day, a group of people came to my husband, Reb Chaim Kanievsky Shlita. This is a letter from Rebbe Kanievsky, Reb Chaim's wife. She was one of the greatest ladies in this past generation. They went to ask her husband, why are all these tragedies occurring? The Rav opened the Gemara and pointed to the answer. Improper speech is the cause, and we can alleviate the situation only by guarding our tongues. And we're talking about many people were killed at that time. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky told the people, that's the situation, that's the solution. The solution is by being careful with the mouth. And there was one of the great people from 50, 60 years ago. His name was Issa Zalman Meltzer. This was one of the Tzaddikim's father-in-law of Aaron Kotler, who started the Lakewood Yeshiva. His father-in-law said this statement. He said, if a person does not learn it consistently, the laws of Lashon Hara, of evil talk, you will not be able to be totally careful from Lashon Hara. And people ask me, wow, what's so bad? Let's say I say something negative about somebody else. What is the worst? And the Gemara tells us that it's considered as is equal to all the sins of the Torah. Why is that? And there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because it causes Hashem to look negatively on the Jewish people. People are saying negative things about the Jewish people. It's not good in front of Hashem. And it causes bad things to happen in the world, even chas v'shalom, death and other things. So when a person is more careful, he does the opposite. He causes living. He causes life. The Vilna Gaon, one of the great tzaddikim of hundreds of years ago, said such an amazing statement from a medrash. He says that if a person holds back one time in his life, once, from saying something wrong, there is no creation or angel in the world that can imagine the reward you're going to get in the next world for one time. And here a person starts learning it, you change many, many times. And I want to continue the letter. This is still, I just told you the beginning of the letter. And she's quoting from one of the great tzaddikim, great people from 40 years ago. She's quoting Rav Segel of Manchester, Zeichet Tzad Bracha, wrote, I have not seen a person who has learned 2 laws of Lashon Hara, who hasn't been helped with having children, finding a marriage partner, recovering from illness, earning a livelihood, or properly raising children. Rav Segel promised that if a person learns Sefer Chavetz Chaim, he would personally act as a defender in heaven. It means you have somebody helping you out. And indeed, we have seen open miracles performed for people who have taken upon themselves to learn 2 halachas a day. If you think about what he's saying, is powerful. Because he's talking about the single person. One person does something, he causes miracles around. Imagine everybody who's listening to this recording. Imagine we would all, many of us all come together and say, yes, we all want to learn it. 3 minutes a day. You know how much we can cause bracha and blessing in the Eretz Yisrael? Who knows, Hashem could cause Mashiach to come in when a flip moment. All from you, everybody here, spread the message. Everybody who listens to what I'm saying now is so important right now. Don't even wait till tomorrow. Right now, when you hear this recording, tell your cousins, your friends, your neighbors, which somebody told me this. When a husband and wife does it, it changes worlds because the whole family changes. People around you changes, and there's blessing in the world. Less people, Chas v'shalom, will die. Because the mamish, not only less, will have bracha, the opposite of bad, will have good. And in the letter, she continues 3 stories. One, somebody didn't have children for 20 years. She told her to do it. And after 20 years, they had a baby boy. Somebody had 2 older daughters. They got engaged. And the last one was powerful. Only a few months ago, a terribly distraught woman came to me, hoping that I could advise her how to help her mother, who was hospitalized for malignant growth. I suggested to her that all the family members commit themselves to learn 2 halachas of Shmiras Lashon after 2 days. She returned to me and asked me to publicize the miracle that occurred. She told me that the whole family gathered and each member took upon himself or herself the obligation to learn 2 halachas a day. After only 2 days, they received a phone call from the hospital telling them to take their mother home. The growth had disappeared and the mother was fully recovered. These are just a sample of the many miracles that have occurred. And Baruch Hashem, myself personally, in the last 5 years, I probably have 50, 60 miracles. Stories, I have many, many stories. I have over 400, but many miracle stories. And what is it? A little move, a little action. I want to tell you this now. What does it have to do with the matzah? The situation we said over, because when a person, the world starts changing, this moment, this move, a little 3 minutes a day, it's going to cause the situation better in Eretz Yisrael and all over the world. And you yourself, your personal things. I have many, many different types of stories, but I want to share with you. I got just permission tonight. I got permission from the Rav to say his name. There's a Rav in Lakewood. His name is Rav Shlomo Zafrani. He gave me permission tonight. I actually called him to ask permission. He said I could say the story over. He said, I heard before I met him, I know him from over the years, I heard that he made a group of people learning Chavetz Chaim, Lashon Hara. And in the group, many people the daughters got engaged, one 32, 25, 23. So I met him about a year and a half ago. And I told him, this is amazing what you're doing, your group. So he tells me, it's nothing. This was already about over a year ago. He tells me, I had 3 big stories in my group. There was a person in my group did not have children. Baruch Hashem, right now, she's expecting a child. This was already over a year ago. And the second one was somebody was struggling with parnasa, with making money. And he started also, I don't know, he didn't tell me how long they were doing it. And Baruch Hashem, his parnasa is okay. And the last one was amazing. Somebody in the group had the machla, had cancer, was mamish dangerous. And he told me the man had a refuah. And he said, by him it was simple. A person starts learning it, he himself had bracha from anybody himself doing it over the years. I've said in other recordings, if you do it for many years, you will see blessing in your children. You'll see blessing in your life. You'll have a happier life, a more positive life. And it's not a segula. I'm going to say that again. People say, oh, it's some kind of magic trick. What is going on? It's nothing to do with it. What really happens is that when a person changes, Hashem changes what's going on in him. He's having a hard life. Hashem now flips it. And you make a little change, and all of a sudden there's a change in you. And imagine thousands of people right now will start making changes and start learning it. Will save millions of words. And Hashem will say, oh, I'm going to change the situation in Eretz Yisrael. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to make it the opposite. I'm going to make such a blessing. Nobody can imagine the reward, the greatness. Hashem will do miracles and things He can do in 1 second. Hashem could do it in 1 second. And Hashem could do wonders in 1 split second. And that all we have to do is make that one move, and really it can become great. Actually, in the last an hour after Simchas Torah, there's already the next day. And actually, I was in Cleveland. And in there, about 5 or 6 people came over to me with stories of Yeshua. It's not such massive, but it was a chizik to see people. Somebody told me he heard me speak the year before in Cleveland, and he got a $10,000 raise after 40 days. Somebody else told me that he started doing it after I told him he got engaged. Somebody else came over to me. He says, my daughter didn't have children. And he said it quietly, he didn't want anybody to hear. He says, my daughter didn't have children. I started in February, and now, Baruch Hashem, she's expecting. I don't know if his wife did it. He just told me quietly. And then somebody else, a Rav, asked me to speak in a place where he was a Rav. I spoke a little bit, and he tells me later on, he said to me, my daughter, was married daughter, did it for my other daughter, had in mind for her. And after 4 months, it was a shidduch, and Baruch Hashem, she got engaged. And Baruch Hashem, I have a lot. And one other story was a boy. This is amazing. He did it for his 36-year-old uncle. And he told me there, whether his family was there, he said, Baruch Hashem, I think it was about 4 months or even less. Baruch Hashem, the uncle got engaged. I think it sounded like right then and there. And actually now in the Simchas Torah, I got even when we're dancing in America, we got one, when somebody came over to me quietly, he says, I got a story for you. Somebody in my shul where I daven, he tells me, I didn't have a friend of mine a year and a half just now. He started learning, him and his wife, I think it was the blue book, the Daily Companion, the Art Scroll. 4 months. 4 months he found out she's expecting, and somebody else told me, the 25-year-old, he told me when he was 25, he learned with somebody 25, and within about 5-6 months, they both got engaged around the same time. And I want to coming now to an end of what I'm speaking about, but I want to bring out a message. There's a Rabbi Grossman. He also gave me permission to say his name. Today is Monday, and last night in America, there was Simchas Torah, and I was coming for Nilas Achag, the end of the day, end of the Yom Tov, and I went in to see Rabbi Grossman in the shul of Lev Avis. And he pulled my arm, he says, sit over here. Looks like he wanted me to speak. And I couldn't believe he gave up his own speech. And he asked me, please speak. He introduced me, and he asked me, please speak. And I couldn't believe it. I spoke for about 20-25 minutes. I was trying to moir the oilam about, the matzav, that we have to be more careful and learn it. And in the middle, he said, I want to tell the world, I want to tell the people a story. And he gave him permission to say this, but Rabbi. He says a couple of years ago, I think it was 3-4 years ago, when I had my story, my own kids, the story I already said I think twice in the recordings about how my 3 kids got engaged within about 4 months. He got inspired, and he had a child. The child was having an operation, some kind of operation. He had to get the best doctors. He told me he was spending time. He didn't know he had the connections, and it was very scary. There's a child's operation, and he went to Manhattan, I think it was, and the doctor's ready, and there's a pre-op. It's called pre-op. And before that, he heard about my story. He said, why not do it? He told his daughter, let's learn it. So him and his daughter started learning. He asked him what about his wife. He wasn't sure. But him and his daughter were learning, I don't know, a few months. They went to pre-op. He said the doctor couldn't believe it. He looks there. I'm sorry. There's nothing to operate. He said, doctor, what do you mean? How can it be? You're having the operation. He says, I'm telling you right now. There's nothing there. He told me Hashem made a nace. There's a chus of learning it. And people don't realize what's this a chus. It was I told you the big rabbi, we said the Manchester Yeshiva, Rav Segel promised he's going to help you. So there is somebody. One of my stories I said over in the other recording, I think twice already had, but it's part of maybe just about 10 years. Somebody 10 years didn't have children. I told him to do it, husband and wife. 2 months later was expecting a child and actually had a baby girl miraculously. And people say, why? Because there's a little move, a little change. And now we're coming to the situation. I want to share with you just a few points that person doesn't realize. When you start learning it, it's not just the mouth. Anybody that's learning it for a year or so, even half a year or so, you know what's happening to the person? He's starting to look positive at people. He sees it. Imagine, I'm giving an example. Everybody think about this example. Imagine you're driving and somebody cuts you off. Nothing happens, no accident, but he cuts you off. Now, you might react in many reactions, but somebody that learns it for a year, you know what's going to happen to him? Most people, what really happens is like, okay, it's not the worst of life. This happens. Maybe the person had he wasn't concentrating. All of a sudden, you're much more positive. You don't become angry. And you don't get frustrating. And all of a sudden, your whole way of looking, somebody had told me this about less than a year ago. He said, it's not just the mouth. Your brain works differently. You're such a better person. You're a different human being. As one person told me, I was doing it for 15 days. I used to spread Chas v'shalom Lashon Hara around, and all of a sudden I heard some news. I wanted to spread it, bad news, and not good things. I controlled myself, and my friend called me up. I changed the topic. In 15 days, it's changing his whole person. His personality changes. You become a better person. Everybody's going to like you better also. You're going to be a nicer person. People are going to say, what happened to him? He was learning it for 3 minutes a day. That's what happens when a person starts learning it. There was a man in the shul where I daven. His name is Mr. Lach. He told me this nice point. He said, I told him, I was mentioning his name. He said to me, people become dam l'kav zechus. They look at people more positive. You're more reacting in a better person. Your whole way of looking. Somebody called me up from Borough Park. A woman called me up, and she was screaming on the phone, you don't know what you're doing. My whole family changes. My life changes. And another person also told me about, you love other people much like yourself. After you will have a better feeling for everybody, for the whole Klal Yisrael. You make exception. Oh, this person's no good. And really now we're holding by the time. We're holding by a very rough time, one of the roughest time in history. He says, why is there fighting? Why is Klal Yisrael fighting? Look, this is now, Chas v'shalom Hashem had causes this thing now, all Klal Yisrael is coming together. Why do we have to wait for this? We can do it right now. Let's take the advantage, everybody. Start learning 3 minutes and change your life, but also look more positive at others. When somebody fights you and screams at you for no reason, you know what? There is a way. There is a way to overcome it. I had a boy in my class where I taught in the afternoon. He was embarrassed by somebody in the school. Very bad in front of everybody. Very bad. And people would say, take revenge. You know what he told me? He's heard my stories over the years. I think it was about a year. He told me, he said, no, I'm going to overcome myself and Michael and forgive him. And he had in mind that his mother should have a child. He davened at that time, and his aunt should have a child. He davened for both. And he told me, both, there were good news. And Rosh Hashanah, about 6 years ago, his aunt had a baby boy, had a bris and pidyon haben, and about a month later, his mother had a girl. And that was the last child that they had over the years. It was amazing. 2 children were born from somebody who's willing to give in. Give in. Don't argue. Look at the good side. When you have anybody who has a fight with somebody else, make up now. If you have any arguments all over the world, you have a cousin, you have a relative, you have a mother, a sister, a brother, make up now. Why? Look what's happening. Klal Yisrael's in big trouble. Why have fight? Make shalom for the zuchus and have in mind. Everybody's learning it. Add one more thing when you're learning it. Say Hashem, in the zuchus that I'm learning it, help Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Help the whole Klal Yisrael all over the world. Please help. And this is a powerful message for everybody. Tell others this message. Make up. And you have seen people around and there's fights and arguments. No. Make shalom and continue. As Hashem sees this, it says, my children are making shalom. That's it. I don't have to make all the tragedies. That's it. Nobody else will die. I will stop immediately. Within a moment, Hashem could stop in a second. Everything happened. Hashem could make the whole fighting and not one more person die. That's it. Right now, immediately, in 1 second. And that's up to everybody who listens to this. Every single person who listens, there's a mitzvah, I'm telling you, to spread it to the whole world. I tried to spread this for the last few years, and I'm now much more emotional in thinking it because I realize this is what's missing. We have this. It could actually change and fix up the situation. Chaim Kanievsky said it 25 years ago. I'm not a Navi, we're all not prophets, but it could be, if it's the same thing like 25 years ago, this is it. And if we fix this, that's it. We don't need anything else. Baruch Hashem, we have Torah, we have a lot of chesed. But we're missing this point, and if we have it, we can change the world. Everybody, please, I beg you, everybody who's listening to this, go right now and don't wait. And as Hashem, we should be Zaycha. This is Geula. We should be Zaycha to greatness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should look in Klal Yisrael and say, Hashem, look how many children are learning, how many thousands and thousands and tens, and I'm hoping hundreds of thousands, if not millions, all over the world. And we should be able to be Zaycha, to Be'ez Hashem, to have the Geula. B'mehera b'yameinu, have this third base of Mikdash built, which is built by Hashem himself in 1 second. And it's because of you. You are the ones that are going to be bringing it, not anybody else. Hashem says, my children, you caused me to come back and bring the Geula. Shlema. Amen. Just want to mention that be sure to everybody to hit the follow button so that you are notified when there's a new share gets posted. It's a tremendous mitzvah to spread it out to everybody, even right now, share the link right now. Also, if you want to join a group of people learning the 2 laws of Lashon Hara a day all over the world, go to daily.sh.org. Our supplies list, you can sign up for a free daily companion, shipped directly to you. And Be'ez Hashem, we should be Zaycha the next time, before next time. It's a beautiful bracha.
You've just experienced.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. Stories to inspire.org.
yecheskelmenache.org.